Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies, it is my privilege to welcome you to the adoption session where the three states under review from this afternoon session, including Pakistan, South Africa, and the United Kingdom, will have the opportunity to indicate their positions on the comments and recommendations made to them by their Troika states. We will now begin with the adoption of the recommendation section of the report on the UPR of Pakistan. The Troika for this report consists of the representatives of Morocco. I would like to invite Her Excellency Ms. Boudar, Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation of the Kingdom of Morocco, who on behalf of the Troika will deliver the working group report outcome. Your Excellency, you have 5 minutes. I give you the floor now. Your Excellency, Ms. Boudar, now you have 5 minutes. I give you the floor. Ms. Boudar, can you hear us? Dear delegates, we apologize for the technical problem. We will wait for a couple more minutes for everyone to be back. Your Excellency, Ms. Boudar, you have 5 minutes. I give you the floor now.
Thank you, Madam President. Fellow delegates, it has been an honor to serve as a Troika for the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, and we thank the delegation for collaborating with us during the drafting of the working group report. The Kingdom of Morocco, in its function as a Troika state for the Delegation of Pakistan, will now present the working group report of this, the fourth reviewing cycle. The Delegation of Pakistan received 14 recommendations, of which 2 were supported, 1 was considered subject of further examination, and 11 were noted. The Delegation of Pakistan has welcomed and accepted all recommendations regarding the mitigation of air pollution. Pakistan considers that the recommendation received from Argentina to take all measures necessary to implement children's rights, especially focusing on the abolishment of child marriage, requires further examination. The recommendation regarding the decriminalization of non-heterosexuality has been noted. The recommendation addressing blasphemy laws have been noted. The recommendation on family planning has been noted. The recommendations regarding the ratification of different treaties, such as the Convention of the Rights of the Child, the Convention Against Torture, the ILO Convention 176, and the second optional protocol of the ICCPR have been noted. Lastly, the recommendations on reforming Article 19 and the amendment of the Legal Code 1860 have also been noted. The Kingdom of Morocco thanks the Delegation of Pakistan once again for their collaboration throughout the process. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency, for your presentation and for the work of the Troika. Before adopting the recommendation section, I would like to recall that comments on the recommendation section need to be made from the floor now. Delegates who want to make comments can raise their hand now. Are there any comments? The delegation of South Africa, you have 1 minute. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. South Africa would like to emphasize again on the importance of the discussion about ratifying the second optional protocol of the ICCPR aiming at the abolition of the death penalty. And thus, we urge the delegation of Pakistan to reconsider this recommendation. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Are there any comments? Your Excellency, Ms. Lovato, you now have 1 minute to add remarks to the comments made by the reviewing states.
Thank you, Madam President. We would like to thank our fellow delegate for this precious comment and feedback on our review. And we want to underline the fact that we noted some of the recommendations. For example, the ones concerning death penalty is absolutely not a sign of poor commitment to human rights, as showed by the many results Pakistan has reached so far. Your recommendation will be, of course, taken into consideration for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Are there any other comments? I now propose that the working group adopts the recommendation section of the report on the UPR of Pakistan. Are there any objections? I see none. The recommendation section of the report is adopted. I now give the floor to Her Excellency Ms. Lovato, Minister for Foreign Affairs of Pakistan, for her final remarks. Your Excellency, you have 2 minutes. You may take the floor now.
Thank you. Madam President, Excellencies, distinguished delegates, a wide range of recommendations were made to Pakistan during the review. We will take into due consideration the comments and recommendations we received. We will discuss your valuable inputs with the national stakeholders, and we will strive to put these comments and recommendations into national priorities and policies as appropriate. We would like to thank again all the actors that took part in Pakistan's Universal Periodic Review. Our delegation wishes to express its gratitude to those who have encouraged the government of Pakistan in its effort to promote and protect human rights. We also thank the delegations for their constructive evaluation of the situation on the ground This will help us in taking the necessary step to improve our performance. We also thank the distinguished delegates of Morocco acting as Troika for the assistance and support they gave us throughout this process. We would also like to thank the Secretariat for the efforts they made to facilitate our universal periodic review. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency, to you and your delegation for your participation in this review. We will now proceed with the adoption of the recommendation section of the report on the review of South Africa. Her Excellency, Ms. Lodge, State Secretary for Human Rights, Ministry of Justice and Human Rights of Argentina, on behalf of the Troika, will deliver the working group report outcome. Your Excellency, you have 5 minutes. I give you the floor now.
Distinguished Madam President, fellow delegates, the delegation of Argentina had the honor to act as Troika for the state of South Africa and congratulates it on the successful, open and constructive working group session. The delegation of South Africa has carefully and respectfully considered and discussed each of the post recommendations. The outcomes will now be presented. A total of 11 recommendations were brought forward within the interactive dialogue, tackling areas such as international conventions, women, gender, migrants, children, education, health, and access to resources and basic human needs. In summary, a total number of 7 were accepted, 3 were noted, and 1 was placed as a subject for further examination. The delegation of Argentina has brought forward 2 recommendations. The first concerning the ratification of the International Convention on the Protection of the Rights of all Migrant Workers and Members of their Families, which was noted, while the second recommendation concerning training focusing on gender sensitivity of the South African Police Service was accepted. The delegation of India brought forward 1 recommendation regarding the access to quality healthcare for all South Africans, which was accepted. The delegation of Morocco posed 2 recommendations. Regarding those, the first recommendation concerning comprehensive strategies and programs to combat gender-based violence was accepted, while the second recommendation concerning the water supply network to all communities was noted. The delegation of Pakistan brought 3 recommendations forward, of which all were accepted, namely the access to quality education, the guaranteed access to water and sanitation, as well as the access to healthcare services. The delegation of the UK posed 3 recommendations as well. The first recommendation concerning the ratification of the 2014 ILO protocol to the Fourth Labour Convention was noted. The second recommendation concerning the equal access to the health system was accepted. And the third recommendation concerning guaranteed equal access to education was placed under subject for further examination. The delegation of Argentina would like to thank the delegation of South Africa again for the fruitful and professional working group session and congratulates them for the successful partaking within the 4th UPR cycle. The delegation of Argentina wishes the state of South Africa all the best for an effective implementation of the recommendations. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your presentation and for the work of Troika. Before adopting the recommendation section, I would like to request that any comments on the recommendation section need to be made from the floor now. Delegates who want to make comments can raise their hand now. Are there any comments? The delegation of the United Kingdom, you have 1 minute, please. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. We want to say thank you to the delegation to South Africa for accepting our recommendation on the equal access to healthcare, to the health system. But we also appreciate the efforts to take in consideration our first recommendation. However, we are concerned about the noted recommendation on the ILO protocol of the Forced Labor Convention, and we therefore ask you kindly to consider it again. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. The Delegation of India, you have 1 minute. You may take the floor now.
Thank you very much, Madam. We would like to thank you for taking into consideration and accepting our recommendation to delegates of South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, Ms. Wraith, you now have 1 minute to add remarks to the comments made by the reviewing states.
Thank you, Madam President. Distinguished delegates, thank you again for your comments and remarks. Thank you also for considering our acceptance, and my delegation. I want also to use this possibility to readdress the mentioned challenge of access to clean water in South Africa. The Department of Water and Sanitation works on the basis of our National Development Plan, and equitable access to water and sanitation is considered as a catalyst for socioeconomic development, contributing in the combat of inequality and poverty in our society. However, as we already said within the interactive dialogue, South Africa faces drought and water stress as a major effect of climate change. We, the government, are doing our best to ensure clean and safe water access to all South Africans in cities as well as in rural areas. Due to these major difficulties deriving from consequences of climate change, we are not unconditionally able to ensure water supplies to all communities as it was recommended by the Kingdom of Morocco. However, we will continue to achieve the overall goal to clean and safe access to water in the Republic of South Africa. Thank you very much, Madam President and honorable members of the Human Rights Council.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I now propose that the working group adopts the recommendation section of the report on the UPR of South Africa. Are there any objections? I see none. The recommendation section of the report adopted. I now give the floor to Her Excellency Ms. Wraith, Ambassador and Permanent Representative of the Republic of South Africa to the United Nations Office at Geneva, for her final remarks. Your Excellency, you have 2 minutes. You have the floor now.
Madam President, distinguished delegates, thank you again for your comments and the adoption of our working group report. My delegation, I very much appreciate the contributions by all member states. And we want especially to thank our Troika, composed of the delegates of the Argentine Republic, for supporting us with the draft of our working group report. South Africa feels pleased to be engaged within its 4th cycle of the Universal Periodic Review. We just want to highlight once again that the government focuses on its aim to fulfill the values of freedom and equal rights for all manifested in our constitution 25 years ago. And our constitution is the center of all our legislative as well as political measures. Therefore, every recommendation needs to be measured by our constitutional standards. South Africa is not able to support any recommendations contradicting our constitutional requirements. As we referred to in the opening address, South Africa faces remaining and profound challenges as a consequence of cruel apartheid era, as well as the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. These include inequality, poverty, and unemployment, which were also addressed within the working group session. In line with our constitutional imperative, we will continue tirelessly to address these challenges, especially through intersectoral development. The received recommendations during the review of South Africa are going to be considered in all 3 branches of the state. Madam President, on behalf of the South African delegation, I want to thank you and the Human Rights Council for this fruitful 4th cycle of the Universal Periodic Review. Finally, we want to express our thanks to all working group members for the constructive interactive dialogue during our 4th review. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency, to you and to your delegation for your presentation and review. We will now proceed with the adoption of the recommendation section of the report on the UPR of the United Kingdom. The Troika for this report consists of the representatives of India. His Excellency, Mr. Kaglayan, Chairperson, the National Commission for Protection of Child Rights, who on behalf of the Troika will deliver the working group report outcome. Your Excellency, you have 5 minutes. I give you the floor now.
Thank you, Madam President. India is grateful for the opportunity to represent the United Kingdom as Troika for their portion of the working group sessions. The United Kingdom received 11 recommendations. 4 recommendations were accepted, 4 were noted, and 3 recommendations were subjected for further review. The delegation of government of Argentina made 3 recommendations. The recommendation to urgently ratify the Council of Europe Convention was subjected to further review. The recommendation to make greater effort in enabling access to sexual health and reproductive rights of all genders in times of the COVID-19 pandemic was accepted. The recommendation to take urgent measures in eradicating forms of possible discrimination of EU nationals living in the UK was subjected to further review by the governments of United Kingdom. The delegation of the nation of India made 1 recommendation to keep the strategies of 1951 Refugee Convention and withdraw the Nationality and Borders Bill 2021 from the United Kingdom Parliament was subjected to further review. The delegation of the Kingdom of Morocco made 2 recommendations to ensure that future bills regarding migrants and citizenship status was subjected to the further review. The recommendation of increase the age of criminal responsibility was noted. And the delegation of Pakistan made 3 recommendations. The recommendation to ratify the International Human Rights Convention and Protocol was noted. The recommendation regarding the implementation of a legal framework aimed at regulating corporal punishments against children was also noted. The recommendation regarding a development towards the improvement of the living conditions and treatments of prisoners in detention facilities was accepted by the government of United Kingdom. Lastly, the delegation of South Africa made 2 recommendations. The recommendation to publish important data on the spread of COVID-19 in nursing homes was accepted. The recommendation to consider an indefinite extension of the special order on remote access to early medical abortion services and to provide remote abortion services across the whole territory, including Northern Ireland, was accepted. We would like to thank the delegates of the United Kingdom for their cooperation during this interactive and meaningful dialogue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency, for your presentation for the work of Troika. Before adopting the recommendation section, I would like to recall that any comments on the recommendation section need to be made from the floor now. Delegates who want to make comments can raise their hand now. Are there any comments? The delegation of South Africa, you have 1 minute. You may have the floor now.
Thank you, Madam President. The delegation of South Africa would like to express gratitude towards the delegation of the United Kingdom for accepting our recommendations. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Your Excellency. The delegation of Argentina, you have 1 minute. You may have the floor now.
Distinguished Madam President, fellow delegates, the delegation of Argentina would like to thank the delegation of the UK for taking part in this UPR cycle and congratulate them on their successful working group session. The delegation of Argentina is pleased to note that the 2nd recommendation posed was accepted, yet is also surprised to find that recommendations 1 and 3 have been subjected to further examination and would like to urge the state of the UK to reconsider and accept respective recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. The delegation of Morocco, you have 1 minute. You may have the floor now.
Thank you, Madam President. The Kingdom of Morocco thanks the delegation of the UK for considering the first recommendation made by our delegation, but regrets that the recommendation on increasing the age of criminal responsibility has been noted and encourages the United Kingdom to reconsider this decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Your Excellency, Ms. Perkis, you now have 1 minute to add further remarks to the comments.
Madam President, fellow delegates, thank you very much for your comments. And I once again like to reiterate the great interactive dialogue that is taking place today. And on behalf of the UK delegation, I'm very happy to hear your responses. I would just like to reiterate about the age of responsibility, that we have taken these concerns into matter, and although the UK government has a firm view on the age of responsibility, we will look to work on this into the future. Also regarding the discrimination of EU nationals living in the UK, as reported by the EU settlement scheme, we have chosen to look into this further. We haven't noted it, so we will be examining this into the next cycle of the UPR. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. I now propose that the working group adopts the recommendation section of the report on the UPR of the United Kingdom. Are there any objections? I see none. The recommendation section of the report is adopted. I now give the floor to Her Excellency Ms. Perkis, Minister of State for the Ministry of Justice, for her final remarks. Your Excellency, you have 2 minutes. You have the floor now.
Madam President, distinguished delegates and member states. On behalf of the UK delegation, I would like to thank all the states that took part in the working group process and who have contributed to this interactive dialogue this afternoon. In particular, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to India, as well as to the President, the UN Secretariat, and to our fellow delegates. The recommendations we've accepted are to enable access to sexual health and reproductive rights of all genders in times of the COVID-19 pandemic, and to improve the living conditions and treatment of prisoners in detention facilities. We also accept to publish more data on the spread of COVID-19 in nursing homes. We will prioritise these matters going forward. The recommendations we noted include the increase of the age of criminal responsibility in England and Wales, the adoption of the International Human Rights Conventions and Protocols, and the recommendation about the implementation of a legal framework regulating corporal punishment against children. We will, however, take these into consideration in our future work. We would like to further examine the recommendations of the ratification of the Istanbul Convention and taking urgent matters into eradicating forms of possible discrimination of EU nationals living in the UK. We would also like to further examine the 2 recommendations on the Nationality at Borders Bill. Our government will look into ways to incorporate these matters in our work. The UPR mechanism for the United Kingdom is viewed as a continuous process, and it's the implementation that takes place between each review that has the potential for far-reaching impact. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Excellency, to you and to your delegation for your participation in this review. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, with the adoption of the draft reports of Pakistan, South Africa, and the United Kingdom, we have completed the review of all the states considered under this section of the working group. I would like to remind you that all the corresponding documents to the reports adopted during this session will be reviewed, and I would like to recall that only what was shared in the room during the allotted speaking time will be reflected in the report of the working group. In this regard, I would like to thank the delegations for clearly identifying their recommendations, as this greatly facilitated the work for the Troikas and the Secretariat. Despite the extraordinary modalities of participation, the working group continues to count with the participation of all states under review and with high representation. The full participation of the states under review The high representation and the high level of speakers and recommendations demonstrate a continued high level of interest of the Padova Model UPR and shows a continued commitment by the international community to the Universal Periodic Review and the importance of the process at the international level. As president, I found the constructive spirit and deliberations of today's session extremely rewarding. This continues to enhance the credibility of the process and ensures it as a success. Now, I would like to remind you about the lobbying session tomorrow at 5 p.m. Please avoid any delays. Thank you all very much for having supported this session. I wish you all a nice evening. I hereby close this session of the UPR Working Group. Goodbye, everybody.